Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. I apologize if you hear a dog barking in the background. Unfortunately, that's part of the life these days for everybody. So I'll try and speak as loud and clear as possible, so if he does bark, you'll be able to hear what I say. So we're excited to introduce a great promotion that we've been working with ADI and the team on to help everyone increase their IP revenues fast. And I'll share some stories and some insights that I've had over the last number of years. As Michael said, I was one of the original customers. I used this technology back in 2009 to move to IP fast and very cost effectively. So there's a lot, and I've met lots and lots of other customers all over North America and even into South America that were able to do the same thing. So we'll share with you a lot of those stories because I think it's really important that you understand from a use case perspective how we can work together to help you and your partners and ultimately the end user customers that are going to be the benefactors of what we have to share together. So we're coming together to celebrate a very important milestone for NVT Fabric. We collectively, over the last 20 years, NVT, I'm sure that you've known the name for many years, and Fabric has been in the business since 2007. Collectively, we were able to save customers over $200 million. And I'll give you a little background about the two companies, because I think it's important to frame it at this point. As I said, NVT was a long-standing ADI vendor for 20-odd years. Back in 2007, as I said, Fabric was founded. First products were delivered to the market in 2008. And I joined the company in 2009. They started the company Fabric specifically to target customers moving from digital and analog phones to IP phones. There was a big challenge in the marketplace at the time, and a lot of customers were stuck with that, myself included. So Fabric came out with the world's first long-reach power over Ethernet managed switch that would deliver Ethernet and PoE on existing legacy wiring. In 2015-14, we were approached by NVT at a trade show. They had attempted to come out with their own product similar to what we were doing, but there were some challenges in the market, and not just with NVT, but with all of the other players in that EOC and extended reach space. And the problem was crosstalk. Fabric solved that problem back in 2007. They had the same problem, but they were able to solve it. So NVT had said, hey, can we OEM your product? And we sat down and with the founder, and it made some more sense to merge and buy NVT. So in 2015, the sale became final, and we became NVT Fabric. And as I said, collectively, we've helped save over $200 million for customers in the marketplace. And even more excited, we've enabled $600 million in additional revenues for our partners like you. And what I mean by that is nobody goes out and buys an NVT Fabric switch to put it in a rack. They plug something into it. And what they plug into it is all the other stuff that you sell and your partners. So that's what makes us the most exciting. What we've found, there's anywhere from $5 to $10 attach rate, meaning the cameras and the NVRs and the software and the maintenance that your partners were able to accomplish by having this massive amount of savings that we're able to realize for the customers. And I'll share that with you in a moment. It'll make a lot more sense as we move on, and we've got lots of time. So we want to help you capture more revenues fast by, first of all, having that foundation to layer that enabling technology on top of to help your customers and their customers accelerate their IoT adoption in the marketplace. And IoT is the big buzzword today. Now, why are more companies not moving rapidly to IoT? Cameras and sensors and phones and access controls and intercoms. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. The number one reason is infrastructure barriers, connecting those IP endpoints back to the application. A lot of times customers, myself included, will look at those barriers and say, boy, that's a lot more expensive than even the phone system that I was looking to implement. The infrastructure costs for me were more expensive than the actual phone system I was looking to put in. So guess what? My boss said, figure something else out because you're not doing it. And I had to. Luckily, I came across NVT Fabric. So quickly, we have to think about, we talked about it before, there's the continued lockdowns. We need to, when we come out of this, and we're going to, it's really, really important that a lot of customers out there that hadn't moved forward with IoT are going to want to do very, very quickly. We see a huge ramp up in these thermal cameras and different types of sensors, and businesses are trying to figure out how to keep their employees as well as their customers safe. And through adoption of IoT devices, they're going to be able to do that. Now we've got 3 quarters to make up 4 quarters worth of business, and I can tell you that the solution that I'm going to show you is probably the only way that you can rapidly move customers from existing technology to brand new IoT technology. So we've got a solution to help your customers upgrade. We've got discounts available, and I'm going to talk about the innovations now to make sense to the market out that you see out there. So to understand why those challenges are there, we have to go back 30 years to a company called Kalpana, who introduced the first multi-port Ethernet switch to connect data terminals together, to share files and things like that. And that design was the data switch out to the terminals. And there were certain limitations that had to be accounted for. Fast forward 15 years, as we started to deploy things like IP cameras and phones and other devices, nothing really changed except those switches now had PoE enabled to enable the power that was required by some of these devices that the traditional original data switches didn't have. But the design hasn't changed in 30 years. But our needs have changed tremendously. So that traditional LAN caused a lot of challenges for people. Think of for customers, you've got things like higher network costs, more complexity, cybersecurity. As we layer more and more devices onto the production data network, it becomes even more difficult, longer deployments, disruptions to the business. Think of a hospital or a cruise ship or a school board having to go out and deploy IP devices. It's very disruptive. It's very time consuming. For partners, there are also challenges. Longer sales cycles. It takes longer for the customer to get their network and infrastructure ready for those IoT devices, and your partners have to wait. More complex. Finger pointing. If your partner is not the one providing the end-to-end solution, if somebody else comes in and is providing the network, which is a lot of the time the case, your partner has to wait. And when they deploy their devices and layer them onto that network, they're the ones that are going to get the blame if the devices don't work. I remember speaking with a telecom provider many years ago, and I had all their technicians in a room. And I said, when you deploy your phone system at a customer and you layer the voice onto the customer's data network, what percentage of voice quality issues are network related? And I had hands shooting up in the sky. 90%, 95%, 99%. I'm thinking, wow. And when they have a problem with the voice, who do they call? Well, they call you because you're the phone company. And you have to send someone out there to troubleshoot, only to find that 95% of the time it has nothing to do with you. What do? Do you charge the customer for that? Well, no, that would be terrible. The customer, we don't want to make them angry. So you're taking all the risk. You're absorbing that cost of going out and troubleshooting it, and you're not even getting paid for it. So it's eroding your margin. Well, there's a better way of doing it. And that's where I came in and told them and showed them. And guess what? 85% of their deployments were using our product. And the rest, they were requiring a dedicated drop for the new devices. Competition as well. So there's a solution. We talk about all the trouble, there are solutions. And if you think about the typical upgrade for a customer, this is a cross-section of a building. You've got your data network in the middle there. You've got your IDF closets every 300 feet because Ethernet has a 300-foot distance limitation. You've got your security network on one side, coax or multi-pair UTP. You've got your telephony network on the left. That's usually a single pair of Cat3 or type cable. But those networks are point-to-point. And the reason they're point-to-point is they were designed that way to deliver high-quality voice, video. Those are real-time applications. And the only way to deliver a great real-time experience is with a point-to-point network. And that's what they've got in place there. So what the industry is telling us is abandon that, rip it out, go and recable, new cable, build out IDF closets, Put more power in those closets, because now you're powering phones and cameras and things. You didn't do that before. Most of the computers that people have today are laptops, so they're not getting any power from the switch at all, and nothing else. But now that you're putting other devices, they're going to need that power and backup power and rack space. And then you've got all this disruption and scheduling and the things that we talked about before. Demands on the staff, network pressures, bandwidth. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? Well, the reality is it is. There was a statistic done, there was a study done a couple of years ago by Numeritas Research, and they found that there are 200 million analog and digital phones still in the marketplace. 200 million. It's a massive number. Why are they out there? Well, because the infrastructure costs are hindering customers being able to move forward. And I venture to guess that there's probably more analog cameras out there than there are analog phones in the marketplace. Because phones have started moving 15 years ago. Cameras have just started over the last 10 or so. So there's a company called Frost & Sullivan. I'm sure you've heard of them. They're an analyst company. They do, analysis of IT, and they came up with this interesting concept called the modern LAN. And what the concept is, it's a set of principles that they've developed to help address the challenges of IoT deployments. If you've got a sensor on a factory floor that's 1,000 feet away from your nearest data switch, how do you provide it the connectivity and the PoE that it needs? Well, there are solutions, and NVT Fabric is on the forefront of that. So they came to us and actually wrote a white paper and interviewed a number of our customers as well as some of our people. And the 6 principles are quite simple. There's a download at themodernlan.org. It's in this slide presentation, but you can visit that website to download the actual white paper itself and some videos. So start with the endpoint first, like I talked about. You got a sensor that's 1,000 feet away from your nearest data closet. Put the sensor where you need it. Build a sustainable LAN strategy, something that's going to last into the future. A standard data network is refreshed every 3 to 5, 7 years. You don't need to do that. If your cameras are getting the power and Ethernet that they need, and you don't need to change them out because you don't need any more bandwidth, they're not going to need more bandwidth, they're going to not need more power. Once you've addressed what they need, you can leave them in place as long as they're functional to you. You don't have to be forced to replace them because you're replacing your data infrastructure. Insert cybersecurity. Building a separate network, purpose-built, is the best way to do that. Be environmentally responsible. Recycling is great, but you know what? Reusing is 100 times more responsible environmentally than recycling. Because with recycling, you've got to rip things out, you've got to go and melt them down, and there's an impact to the environment with that. Maximize your return. Allocate as much of your budget as you can to those things that maximize your return. And finally, leverage innovation. And that's where we come in. We've introduced this innovation, so you think of a standard PoE switch or an enterprise PoE switch today. There's 2 limitations that they have that's been in place for 30 years. That's the 100-meter reach, or 328 feet, as well as the Cat5 or Cat6 cable at all 4 pairs required. Doesn't matter what type of switch you got, they're both stuck with those limitations. Well, NVT Fabric has introduced the Chariot line of products that will go up to 6,000 feet on coax, or multi-pair UTP, 1 or 2 pairs up to 2,000 feet. So that breaks both of those barriers. And here's what they look like. So you think of a standard switch. Let's say you've got to go 6,000 feet with a standard switch. You've got 18 data closets or something in between. Where with us, our polar switch, which stands for Power over Long Reach Ethernet, comes in an 8, 24, and a 48 port version. It will do 1,200 feet on a 1 pair with power and Ethernet, and on a bundle. In a home run, it'll give you up to 2,000 feet, up to 1,900 feet on a home run single pair wire, giving you 10 megs of Ethernet and up to 20 watts of PoE power. More than enough for voice or even the 2, 3 megapixel cameras, access controls, speakers, intercoms, those types of things. Next is our Flex line, 8 and 24 port managed. The 8 port versions are all unmanaged products, up to 2,000 feet, 100 megs full duplex, and up to 50 watts of power. And then our Clear and EC10 switches that run on coax. 10 megs, you get 6,000 feet. 100 megs, you get 3,000 feet, and delivers up to 30 watts of power. There's the managed switches there. As you can see, they're exactly the same. Inside, the components are the same. It's just the external downlink ports that are different. You've got Amphenol for the polar, you've got coax for the clear, and you've got RJ45 for the flex. You've got dedicated management and console ports, 2 gigabit Ethernet, 2 gigabit fiber, as well as a hot swappable power supply, AC and DC in the same chassis, and you can actually connect up to 4 of them together on the DC backplane. There's DC in and out on the power supply, so you can connect 4 of these switches together to create a power sharing, load balancing ring. So if a power supply goes, the other switches will pick up for it. One of our customers that we worked together was a cruise ship line that ADI had sold some of our clear switches to a partner, and they were very, very interested in that power-wise. If they're out to sea, a power supply goes, no problem. The cameras stay up. They can go and swap out the power supply whenever they need to. So very, very important technology when it comes to that type of mission-critical application. At the far end, there's a couple of different flavors and options. This is the polar single-pair product. This is the coax product, and this is the multi-pair product. So you've got a 1-to-1, and we also introduced a 1-to-4 on the multi-pair and coax version. So if you've got a camera on a pole that has a coax cable and your customer wants to have 4 cameras, you got it right here. 1 coax in, 4 Ethernet out, all with PoE power. You can plug a camera, an access control, an access point, whatever. Any IEEE compliant device will be able to support. So people ask, well, how does it compare to, a Cisco switch? That's the standard for the marketplace. Obviously, everyone knows that. So we approached a company called Siama Systems, who makes network testing equipment. And we asked them to test the latency on a Cisco Catalyst switch on 250 feet of Cat5 e-cable. And as we know, the industry standard, Cisco switch performed very, very well. In fact, the Genie tells us a good quality VoIP call can be achieved with latency rates of 150,000 microseconds. So you see they're well below that. So he said, we'd like to compare our clear switch on 2,000 feet of RG6 coax. And guess what? The results were almost identical. So it begs to ask the question, why go through all the pain of ripping out and replacing and running Cat5 cable and putting PoE switches in when you're going to get the same exact results running on the existing cable that you have? And as I said, all of our products share the same technology. So we've tested all of our products and we got the same results on everything. So as I said, why would you do it if you don't have to? So we thought, okay, one more thing we'd like to do is we'd like to take that comparison and compare to some other Ethernet over coax and extender type solutions. There are others in the market, and ADI even sells them. And I'm sure that you've heard mixed reviews, and we have as well. So remember our test results. We had to make the graph, we had to increase the graph by 500 times because the results are so much higher. You remember we were down here with Cisco around 128. Our competitors and those other offerings are up to 5,000. 5,000 as compared to 128. That's why you hear bad things about some of these Ethernet over coax and extender solutions. And you can visit our website. We've got all of this stuff on our website. You can download the comparisons for yourself. Knowledge is power, and that's something you'll hear a lot from NVT Fabric. So solution breadth, I talked about the managed switches. You've got unmanaged switches, and you've got extenders as well. And what we're going to talk about today is a special promotion with ADI on the unmanaged products that we've got in the market. You've got them in stock. We've got aggressive pricing in the market. We've created massive additional discounts on the EC10 and the Polar LPC, so single pair and coax products. It comes with a switch and the adapters bundled all together. You get your standard great discount, but then you're allowed to provide an additional 25% discount to the partners. So it's huge. And we sell a ton of these things in the marketplace. So I want ADI to start taking advantage of this because it is a plug and play, instant in and out solution. I had someone just the other day told me they just went and cut over 8 phones at a customer at the lunch break. They went out for lunch, came back, and they had their phones up in place and running and ready to go. So the key for you, how are you connecting the IP endpoint? If they're buying IP cameras or IP devices from you, how are you connecting them? If they're telling you they're going to go rip out and replace the cable and put PoE switches in, tell them you got a better way. The Polar will run 1,200 feet. The Flex will run 2,000 feet. The EC10 will run 3,000 feet with Ethernet and PoE, and you can see the endpoint adapters here. You can also, there's a rack mount accessory available for these as well, so you can put 2 of these. I have a lending company in the Northwest that deployed 300 of these in two of these switches in a rack mount. They had about 15 phones per location that they were able to use these in, and it was fantastic. It was quick, it was non-disrupted, and it was about 1/10 of the cost it was going to be for them to run all brand new cables and PoE switches in all these 300 locations. So let's look at how we deploy an EC10. So you've got a customer that has a legacy coax analog cameras plugged into a DVR. You've got your EC10, you bring it on site, you plug it into the network however you want. It can be used in cloud or on-premise. Once that's done, you can test it. Disconnect the coax from your DVR, connect it to the EC10 switch, plug in the adapter, plug in your IP endpoint, boom, you're done. And it's that fast. Think of a small retail application or somebody with a handful of phones, in and out, you're done. You know, the longest time it's going to take is for you to swap out the old camera with the new one. So this is an interesting one, and it's something that as I said, I've been doing this for a very long time, and it happens all the time. You've got 2 different ways, and we're talking about the traditional LAN, if you remember from the beginning, and then you've got the modern LAN on the right. So traditional LAN tells us that, you know, you've got both of these have 3 things in common: infrastructure, network, the devices you plug into them, and then finally the applications. And if you think about ROI from a customer's perspective, really it's the applications, maybe a bit of the devices, but mostly the applications. The dark blue is definitely not a return on ROI for the customer. And that's the biggest cost. In a traditional deployment, that's anywhere from 50 to 80% of the budget, is this labor and cable and gear and PoE and all that stuff, all the disruption. And complex, no revenue sometimes for you or your partners if they've got other people doing that work. But with the modern LAN, we're able to reduce those costs anywhere from 30 to 90%. And in doing so, we've created more wallet share for you and your partners to be able to share and provide additional budget money for them to buy better devices and buy better applications and software. And that's where the customer has a better return, you have better revenues, and so does your partner. And they have better brand recognition because the customer is going to say, wow, that was way better than what I was being told I had to do with some of the other people that I've been talking to. You know, I could tell you about a story, a customer I met about 7 years ago in downtown Chicago that wanted to move. They had 1,500 users in a 10-story building. They wanted to move onto an IP voice system. They just got a budget, $1.8 million to do the rip and replace. And it was going to take them a year and a half as they moved people off of a floor to renovate and then back again. And I talked to them and they asked me what the cost was for this. And I said, you know, you're probably around $200 a port. So the CIO said to me, $200 a port? You're telling me for $300,000 I can do the same thing that was going to cost me $1.5 million? And I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, I don't believe it. I said, tell you what, let's do a proof of concept. We'll put it in, we'll try it out, we'll do what I say, and if it doesn't do what I said, we'll take it back, you'll never hear from me again. But if it does, then we'll talk. Well, guess what? We put it in, it worked great. They said, we're moving forward. So they went through, they got everything ready, and on a Saturday morning, the team went in, started doing their deployments, went back Sunday, did a little more, did some testing. Monday morning, everyone came back, and 1,500 brand new IP phones on everybody's desk, one weekend, as opposed to 18 months, and 300,000 as opposed to 1.5 million. And guess what they did with that 1.5 million? They bought better phones from our partner. They bought more applications from our partner and our distributor, and the customer was ecstatic, and so were our partners. So you can do the same. I saw this box popping up here. I'm thinking maybe somebody has some questions. If we've got something interesting here. Okay, no, nothing compelling. All right, we'll keep going. All right, just some of the thousands of customers we've got globally. As you can see, it's in the White House. NASA has standardized. Norwegian Cruise Lines, we worked on that one together, along with a bunch of other stuff. You've got hospitals, you've got school districts, universities, large government installations. We've done all of the UK embassies, British embassies, all the Canadian embassies, and we've got about 25,000 phones going in the US State Department and their embassies, up to 250,000 of those. And now they're looking to do cameras too. So maybe we can work together on helping get that done as well. So contact your branch manager for pricing. We've got this pricing, as I said, very aggressive. We want to get these products out the door. They're in demand right now. So you just have to talk to your customers about it. When they're going to plug something in, what are they plugging it into? Ask them that question. There's a SPIF program in place as well, so contact your branch manager for pricing as well on that. So increase your revenues. Ask that question. How are you connecting the endpoint back to the application? I have a better way for you and your customer. So we've created landing pages to help you as well. As you can see here, this is for our distribution partners, yourselves. There's some videos, there's some case studies, there's some different takeaways that are available. We've also got one for you to direct your partners to as well. Same thing that talks about this promotion, how they can take advantage of it and how they can read some of the case studies and learn more. Use us as subject matter experts. And I'm going to bring up a slide at the end here showing our regional coverage and some of the contact information for our regional folks as well. I talked about proof of concept. If you've got a larger opportunity, the proof of concept is a program that's available to you and your partners. If we've got a customer that we think is a good target, we'll go in. Your partner can bring the solution to them. They can test drive whatever, whether it be cameras or phones or whatever your partners are selling the customer. They can test drive it within their own environment. There's no other way for them to do that other than this. They put it in, they try it out for a week, a month, whatever, and then they can put it back the way it was without any disruption. Our proof of concept has a 90% success rate. So 90% of the time, you saw those logos on that slide before, every single one of those ones started with the proof of concept. So that's something that's really important. And there are demo programs available for your partners if they want to buy some of these things outright. And leverage into the innovation and the price advantage that's in the market today to grab that market share. And it's fast, reliable, non-disruptive, and cost-effective. And that's what people are going to want as we come out of this COVID-19 pandemic. It's going to happen, and when it does, customers are going to want to move forward with their digital transformations, and you can really help them with that, and you and your partners. You can read our mission statement, and while you're doing that, I'm going to queue up my, actually, you know what, Michael, you had someone else that you wanted to present very quickly. If you want to do that, and then I'll flip back to me, answer some questions, and go through the territory map. How's that sound?
Sounds great. If you all have questions, please put them into the Q&A box, and we'll keep Richard as long as you guys keep asking questions. In between, I'd like to introduce Josh Galland, who is part of our team in Louisville, Kentucky. Josh, welcome to you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name is Josh Gilland. I'm the project registration manager for ADI, and my team is dedicated to working with our vendors to provide discounted pricing for larger projects. What that means for you is cheaper prices on your large bids. All you need to do to take advantage of my team is to contact your local sales branches when you have something coming up. Generally $5,000 to $10,000 or more per order. It depends on the vendor, but that's kind of the rule of thumb. Contact your local salesperson, let them know the bill of materials you're working with, which vendors you're looking at, and give them some basic information. We'll need to know location, city, state, end user, project name, if there's vendor competition typically, that kind of thing. And then they'll take that information, get it to us. We'll handle everything on the back end, update any quotes, get the pricing back usually within 24 to 48 hours, and get you a revised quote, save you a little bit of money, and maybe help you win some extra bids. It's a pretty straightforward process. It's just something that not everybody knows ADI does on our end, and we're more than happy to help out in any way we can. Thank you.
That's great, Josh. And yeah, we've got some pretty aggressive project pricing that you can take advantage of as well. The threshold is 10,000 list for us. But yeah, then we'll work through Josh's team to get that registered and be able to take advantage of some of these pricing advantages. One that we're working with on a regular basis is Stanley Security out of Indiana. They've done probably 15 or 20 correctional facilities in and around the U.S. and ADI and Stanley and NVT Fabric have partnered on pretty much on all of those. So it's been fantastic. So I'm going to switch gears here, and whoops, I'm going to bring up my regional map, and then I'm going to we'll do our Q&A as we said before. There we go. It's a little bit busy, but basically we've got 5 regions in the US, and then we've got Canada in North America. So we've got 5 regional managers that work within the territory as an outside salesperson. Given the travel restrictions in some of the states right now, they're doing a lot of it remotely, but we'll get back to business shortly. We have 3 product specialists that support our regional managers from an inside perspective. We have 2 vertical sales leads. We have a U.S. federal government lead, Jeff Schill, and Julian Kennedy is our healthcare, hospitality, and retail lead. And we've got all the contact information on the slide deck. I'll send these to you, Michael, and you can share them how you wish. As you can see, we've got myself, and we've got all of the different regional managers. We've got our PSSs, we call them, product specialists. We've got our vertical specialist, as well as our technical support manager and our sales engineer. So if anyone's interested in speaking with one of our sales engineers, that's available to you as well. So let's take a look and see if anyone's got any questions here. ADI webinar schedule moving forward starting in July. Okay, well, you can answer that one, Michael, I guess, and let's see if anybody has anything in the chat.
Okay, I'll answer Joe's question. The month of July, we're backing off from an everyday webinar. The week of the 6th to the 10th, I'm actually taking a vacation, so there'll be no webinars that week. And I probably should have started next week, which includes the 1st and the 2nd. We will have webinars on those days. I'm sorry to my Canadian friends for the 1st, but we will not have anything on the 3rd, which is a U.S. holiday. And starting on the week of the 13th, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll be running a webinar each of those 2 days for the weeks of the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. We'll revisit the webinars corporately during the early July, so I'll give you an update about August once we get to the week of July the 13th. I hope that was helpful, Joe.